Pro-life advocates face potential 11-year prison sentence after peaceful protest at abortion clinic. Here's a clip.
This is from WNG.org. Washington jury convicts 5 pro-lifers. I find this story absolutely fascinating. They say the jury on Tuesday found the 5 activists guilty of violating the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. Authorities immediately took the pro-lifers into custody. They now await their sentencing, and their lawyers are planning an appeal. The trial, which began with a jury selection on August 9th, centered on the participation in a 2020 sit-in at a facility in D.C., where they suspected an abortionist of performing illegal late-term abortions. Each of the activists faces the possibility of up to 11 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and as much as $350,000 in fines. We've talked about
that is so wild.
Escalating conflict, culture war, cold culture war, whatever you want to call it. And one of the examples that we often give is Colorado and I think Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
They border each other. In one state, abortion is completely illegal, and in another state, it is completely unrestricted, which opens the door to some very serious troubles. If, say, a woman flees the state where it's overtly illegal in every respect into Colorado for the abortion, which is likely happening now as we speak, and then there is a challenge from another individual who says, no, stop her, she can't do this, it's illegal. What happens? Does Oklahoma send police to stop the woman from aborting and killing the baby because they view it as murder?
No.
Or do they not view it as murder? What I'm interested with the story about these activists is that if you take the perspective that abortion is murder and that this doctor may have been performing late-term abortions, you have a story of 5 individuals who took no direct physical action to stop an active murder from taking place, simply sat in front of a building where a murder was taking place, and will now be going to prison for trying to stop that murder. Again, that's if you take that perspective. That, I gotta say, is very interesting to me because it says to me, I don't actually think conservatives think it's murder. And it was actually there. I can't remember who was making the argument.
Depends
it was actually a
on
pro-life
how
Christian conservative who said
pregnant they are.
Clearly, there is something different about it in that even pro-life activists do not behave similarly, overwhelmingly. There may be some individuals who would view it completely as the same thing. But for the most part, the political conservatives that say it is murder do not act like it is. So I'm wondering if, for one, this is a crazy story, and I'm interested in what you guys think about it. I'm also interested in where we go from here, considering this.
I honestly think that I think that the whole dogpile on people that are so pro-life that they think a 1-day-old inceptive child is the same holistically as a 17-year-old boy. So yeah, destroying a fertilized egg at 1 day and killing a 17-year-old in cold blood are very, very different. And I feel like it's LARPing to act like it's a murder.
Why is it different?
Because it has no cognizant sentience as far as we know.
So a person who's like in a coma, you can kill?
No, that has nothing to do with it. I'm talking about a 1-day-old inceptive egg sac or whatever it is, and then an adult human. They're just different. So I find like this obsession,
but
and you
how?
see it here, like
explain it to us. I don't understand what you're trying to say.
Well, it doesn't know English. It probably can't do math. I don't think it can even speak. It doesn't have.
Okay, but are those
doesn't even have ears. I don't think it has auditory abilities.
But I don't think.
Does a 6-month-old have that ability?
I'd have to pull out the thing and look at it to examine to see what all it's developed at that point at 6 months. But usually by 24 weeks, I think you've pretty much become a human.
So you're taking the Vosh approach in that babies aren't actually alive until some point after they're already born.
No, it's living tissue, but not. They're not 24 weeks. 24 weeks.
You're saying during pregnancy, and you're saying after birth.
I'm sorry, say again.
You're saying after conception.
24 weeks after conception.
You guys are talking.
Just making sure we're not talking about a 2-year-old.
No, 6 months, 6 months, 4 months. I don't know, something like that. Well, but at some point it starts to become human, and it's still living. I'd never say it's not alive, but whether or not it's a murder depends on whether or not it's a human being.
Well, the law.
It's alive, but it's not a murder.
Yeah, correct.
So intentionally killing a human life is not murder?
No, it's not a human. I don't think it's a human until, 6 weeks or whatever. It's 24 weeks.
What is it?
And a blast, what's it called? A zygote?
Are you going to say cells? Is that where we're going to go?
All of the above?
We're going to go the left wing talking.
It's pretty vague.
Describing a human, though. All those terms to describe the stages of pregnancy are all describing what eventually is a human. I was going to say becomes a human, but they're all ways to describe a human being.
From Ian's perspective,
dogs are zygotes too at some point. So zygote is like an undeveloped animal.
So like here's I mean, I don't want to get into the argument over abortion. I'm more concerned with the political ramifications of these people being arrested and their perspective on it. But I accept your perspective, Ian. I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to say. I don't think you've actually
I don't either.
you've accurately articulated it in a way that I or many people could understand.
When people say that abortion is murder, I think
Yeah.
it is kind of like a LARP.
Like
if people were in that building getting killed in cold blood, those people would not be arrested.
Well, and I
They'd
agree.
be heroes.
This is the point I actually made. These people believe that a murder.
Exactly.
They claim a murder is taking place, so they sit down and hold hands. I don't think they actually believe that. I agree with you. I do think that babies are alive in the womb and all of that. I do think, at one day of conception, there is a human life there that would be killed in an abortion. But there's clearly something different about it in that these activists, and almost every single activist, their position is, well, another murder happened today. Let's write it down. I'm like, when you see a video of a store clerk being robbed and the guy starts mercilessly beating the dude with the stick, these people are cheering and celebrating. Yeah, when it comes to this, they're like, let's sit down in front of the building. Now, I'm not stupid. I understand. There is a political climate here, and these people are trying to do the nonviolent civil disobedience, which is the appropriate way to protest what our society
the media
deems, in many respects, acceptable, while half does not. They're taking the nonviolent approach to a conflicted issue in this country, which is, in my opinion, nonviolent civil disobedience is the correct way to address these things, but they're going to prison for it. If you can't sit down in front of a building and link arms,
well, J6 is the same way.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this a state that has one of the barrier
Yes, the
laws?
FACE Act. It's DC.
So they're saying that they're within the violation. Like what were?
Yes, they were in DC, and DC has a law saying you can't block access to a clinic.
So are we
11 years for
Jen
that?
Psaki. I don't know if you saw this the other day.
11
saying
years?
That, well, the whole thing about
DC
Democrats
is
being a fan of
dystopian.
late-term abortions is misleading. Are they starting to?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Look at the laws in D.C., and that is the nation's capital. Look at how dystopian they are. It's illegal to block a clinic, and you get 11 years in prison, even though it's not even a life-threatening thing you're blocking? No, if it's life-threatening and you kill a person, okay, manslaughter, right? 11 years in prison. It's like, how do you get 11 years in prison if you blocked a clinic, even if it was just a normal clinic, and it was just like, oh, yeah, I wanted to just, I just wanted to check up on something. It's my annual checkup. My health insurance pays for it. 11 years in prison for you. It's just like, why? Maybe 11 days at max. And even that, I'm just like, probably just who just cares. But maybe 11 days. 11 years. That's wild.
Back away from this now? Because how we even got to the point where there are a lot of Democrats, there are a lot of people on the left that are okay with all the way up to the point of, a week before birth.
Post
okay with terminating a pregnancy.
The former Virginia governor, he was okay with post-birth abortions.
Back away
he said
from that
it
now?
in a speech.
I think a lot of people equate supporting something with happiness. I think there's a lot of people that I've talked to that are pro-abortion that are not happy about it. They support it, they want it to be legal, but they don't get joy out of it. I think
Interesting.
that's the more normal approach when it comes to being pro-choice. But I think it's still there. I don't see anything backing away from it. I think because Roe v. Wade's kind of in the rear view mirror right now. We've talked about it less as a country, but it's going to come back. It always does.
Right now in this country, Roe v. Wade has been overturned. Some states have decided to outright ban abortion. Some states have decided to make it unrestricted, limitless. The Democrats, of course, lie endlessly. Like I forgot who mentioned it. Jen Psaki says nobody wants this, but all of these states, you have I should say all of you, but many of these states are enacting these laws. You may say, people have gotten arrested for, nonviolent civil disobedience in front of these clinics before, but we're now at a point where the conflict may be coming to greater tension with, like I mentioned, Colorado and Oklahoma bordering each other, and one saying absolutely not, and one saying under any circumstances. With stories like this, pro-lifers are being told there is no nonviolent civil disobedience path towards resisting what they view as murder. My fear is what happens after that, because the last thing we want is anything to escalate. But the government is going to put these people in prison for sitting down in front of a building.
Mm-hmm.
How long?
Up to 11 years, I think it is.
And then $350,000 fine too. So
up to, the courts may say, a year or something.
Yeah,
they may get
come
probation. But either way, We've got these people blocking highways. They get arrested for it. You got these activists that do this nonviolent civil disobedience all the time. You had far leftists storm one of the Senate buildings, storm the Capitol building previously for like Roe v. Wade stuff, banging on the Supreme Court doors. No problem. You got far leftists trying to burn down the White House, burning down a guard post in front of the White House, setting fire to St. John's Church. What did we get from that? Nothing. I'm like, this is getting scary. You know, that's all I can say.
There's got to be a way with abortion to have this conversation that is going to heal the system, because instead of being like screaming, no, yes, no, that doesn't work. Instead of being like murder, 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 when it's not legally a murder, don't scream that it is, because it's not legally one.
Hold on. There are some states where it is legally murder right now.
Well, what happens if you...
So in a state where it's not a legal murder, and so there's no point in screaming murder, that's not the way.
Well,
but also,
hold
take
on.
an 8-month-old baby in the womb.
Stop right there. Stop right there. This is the conflict I'm actually talking about. If you live in Oklahoma, it is codified that it is illegal to perform an abortion. So the people in that state have stated by their own democratic processes, you cannot kill this baby. If you live in that state, and there are many people who live in many states not have enacted these restrictions or total bans, they are saying it's murder, and they have made it completely illegal. Other states have said the inverse. It is not murder, and it is unrestricted. So you can't just say it's not a murder now, because some states are saying it effectively is.
That's an interesting way to look at killing, but you're right.
But where does this conflict go then? If you have, this is why I'm saying this is a federal question. This is a question under the 14th Amendment. I guess it depends on your definition of a naturally born citizen, because if they're not born, then the 14th Amendment may not actually protect them. But the 14th Amendment actually says something to the effect of human rights not being denied. This is where it gets interesting.
Yeah, because when you have an 8-month-old baby and you look at it in the eyes and it's looking at you, you know it's a human. I've had friends that were born premature, but they could have been aborted in certain states legally. Right. And I'm like, but once you know like that, if you can know, maybe you would be less likely to want to do it.
The issue right now that I bring up is if Oklahoma says it's murder and it's illegal, and Colorado says, nope, it's not, and you can kill the baby, something is broken in this country. You cannot have a nation where certain jurisdictions determine that human DNA and matter is not worthy of life rights, and one state saying they are. This is a recipe for exactly what we saw back in 1861.
Yeah, it's weird though, but that's how the country is. States' rights and federal rights, and that's how it is. That's how we got the United States of America, is all the states can choose what they want, but we're united in some effect, and pros and cons, I guess.
Saying you do not have human rights, while other states you do have human rights. This is an impossibility. They cannot. These two positions cannot coexist.
So there are 30 states where it is considered double homicide if you kill a pregnant woman. 15 of those states, abortion is fully legal up to.
What?
So it is murder.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
it is murder.
I don't understand. How do you have that double standard? That's what I don't understand.
That's fascinating.
Are you saying 100% sure it's considered a murder, or is it just an illegal killing of some sort, like a man?
Homicide.
Homicide.
Homicide means human killing human.
Because murder's a federal crime.
Homicide means human killing human.
Yeah.
If you are correct in that, if there's a woman who's pregnant and you...
So technically, actually, just to correct that, homicide, from what I understand it, is someone dies around you. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you murder them if there's a homicide. You could be convicted of a homicide if you're doing some heavy substances. Sorry, YouTube, I can't actually say what I want to say. Heavy substances with someone, and something happens where they lose their life. Yeah, you could get convicted of homicide just for that, even though you didn't really, or something like that. Sorry.
You're drunk and you crash into them. They say you killed 2 people. There's 2 homicides. It's a double homicide. They are saying a human killed a human, and that unborn baby was a human.
It could be looked at as like as a manslaughter, not necessarily a murder. Murder's murder's like a federal crime.
Well,
so
even
I don't
if it's murder, you're still, or even if it's manslaughter, you're still slaughtering a human. That's the whole point of manslaughter.
I agree.
No. I'm fairly certain in the states you're referring to, if a deranged serial killer takes a machete and goes to a pregnant woman and butchers her, killing both the baby and the woman, it is a double murder.
Well, even if you just shoot the woman, it's like, because it's...
Yeah, if the baby dies...
going to
Exactly.
die as a result. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip.
Yeah, very, 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 very interesting conversation there. It's pretty dark. My apologies for that. It's crazy how they go from, the pro rights advocate to, I don't know. All of it's dark, honestly. Yeah, my take on it is they're just peacefully protesting. It's a lot like the J6 thing. It's like they went into the Capitol because the police let them in. Was there some back actors? Should they be charged? Absolutely. It's like how BLM people, most of the people that did BLM protests, they shouldn't be charged for anything. They're just going out protesting. But some of them did crazy stuff. So those individuals, you shouldn't charge people as groups. This stuff is so wild to me. As individuals, they made individual decisions, and they should be individually charged because of that. But just to have someone blocking a clinic, like I was saying earlier, and then be like, well, you get 11 years in prison. And if someone would have, lost their life because of that, okay, fair enough. 11 years in prison, I would get it. But what reason would they even be doing that? That would be some savage stuff, so that makes sense. It's all intent. From what I understand, I went to a couple years of college, and I went to business law, and they were saying it's all about intent. The law is intent. If you intended to do it, that's what's important. Can you get stuff if you didn't intend to do it, like manslaughter or whatever? Yeah, you can, but you're going to get lesser time. But this type of stuff, they weren't intending to do anything to someone, to harm them. They're actually trying to protect another being in their eyes, another person in their eyes, and 11 years in prison for just sitting in front of it. It's out of control. And like I was saying earlier, the capital city, Washington, D.C., and then they're like, this is what we want. Is it who the politicians are always around? It kind of makes sense. It always goes more left, doesn't it? But then again, it makes sense that D.C. is left because they're all funded by the government. It's all a giant mess. But yeah, these guys, they should be just let free, not have anything. This is just wild. And like I've said in other video segments, this is just going to turn people against the left. Even people that are like pro-abortion, they're going to be like, okay, I'm pro-abortion, but this is too much. I'm just going to start voting for people on the right, because even if I am pro-abortion, at least they're not going to lock me up if I go and stand in front of a clinic for something that I disagree with for 11 years. They're just going way too forceful. And then like people on the left, they used to be against government doing this type of stuff. 9/11, the NSA, all this type of stuff. Like they didn't want any of this stuff. The NDAA, look all this stuff up, it's just like they didn't want any of this stuff. The left was championing Edward Snowden. The left hated George Bush. But now it's just like, oh, I get 11 years in prison. Like, forget the Patriot Act. You get 11 years in prison for sitting in front of a building. It's just wild. I think they're just going too ham. I just think it's going to backfire. They're just going way across even the line most leftists would draw. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe for daily news updates, smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and share your thoughts on the story in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.